So this is something that I'm personally interested in because I joke around about aspic a lot and kind of bringing it back and using it. And here we are, old school 1950s grandma food, Australian chefs on reviving retro recipes. Um, and this is kind of exciting. There's one TikTok in particular that I really enjoy who goes through really old cookbooks, making stuff that they made, back in the day. And I find that really unique and really kind of like a fun trip down culinary history lane. And here we are in Australia. There's some 1950s food kind of getting revived back in, or all the way up here in 2000 in the 2020s. So aspic, I think, was around that time. And if anybody isn't familiar with aspic, it's essentially just like jello, a gelatin. And what they would do is they'd make these elaborate like gelatin suspended food casserole salads. It was very odd. So the idea was that it was kind of food preservation was something seen as like, oh, this is something the rich folks have, and the gelatin kind of came along, and they could, put stuff in gelatin to make it last longer, and everybody could do it. So then it was also a status of, oh, look how much time it took me to build this fancy, elaborate gelatin monstrosity. Aren't I such a good, housewife kind of thing? It was like a symbol of status for them to show that they could spend the time making it and the money to make it. But a lot of times there were very strange ones. There were some, that have hot dogs and hard-boiled eggs and all kinds of weird stuff. So maybe we'll see a return of that. Who knows? I hope not, because they look gross. I shudder thinking about the day that makes a return. But here we go. From flummery to herring under a fur coat, archived in cookbooks and childhood memories, can be a rich source of inspiration. That's true. Like, it's really fun to revisit old family recipes. And I know, like, there's definitely recipes that my mom made that are not appetizing, but at the same time, so good. Like, so good. So, here we go. We all love a kitchen comeback. Think the return of Meatloaf. Where did Meatloaf go? Did Meatloaf go away? Who took Meatloaf away? I love Meatloaf. Or when inexplicably prawn cocktail got its groove back. Yeah, that one could've. Chefs are skilled at trawling the depths of nostalgia from the trope of I learned to cook this dish at my nana's knee, mining collective food memories. I've always gone back and done a lot of reading of old cookbooks, said Chef Blaze Young, who heads up the kitchen at Fremantle wine bar Neo Ruin. I kind of love old school 1950s grandma food and old Australiana. I actually have this dream to make like the world's bougiest casserole one day. I don't know what would be in it. I have not thought any more than that. I just really want to serve a banging casserole. Heck, maybe one day we'll spend stream just trying to come up with like the perfect casserole. Young isn't wed to her own grand styles of cooking. She also enjoys interpreting the food memories of others. One such effort, a confit fish under a fur coat, has become her signature dish. The childhood memories of Neo Ruin's owner, Dimitri, I can't say that last name, were the inspiration for the spin on herring under a fur coat. This guy, or girl, this person, who is of Georgian descent, told Young about the Eastern European classic. Traditionally, it's made with tinned preserved herring, then it's layered with cold vegetables. She says, I guess to make the herring a little bit more appetizing. Young uses monkfish from Scott Reef off the northern west coast of Western Australia. It is a bycatch, which she says has a beautiful vegetal flavor, reminiscent of leeks when slowly confited. Oh, that's kind of nice. A bottom layer of blanched potatoes is dressed sparingly with pickled shallot. followed by confit, monkfish, fresh dill, then blanched carrot, roasted beetroot spiked with a little bit of horseradish, with a final layer of egg salad made with the quality of olive oil and mayonnaise. I feel like I've had this somewhere. This sounds super familiar. I think I've had a version of this. The 6 layers are prepared incredibly simply. And it was really good too. It was really, really good. When making really clean examples of ingredients. When eaten individually, but really complex and interesting when eaten together. The final touch is salty smoked Yarra Valley caviar, an element of decadence for a traditionally humble dish. Mine definitely did not have caviar, I can say that right now. But it was a sort of this weird layered dish of like pickled fish. It had egg, it had potato, maybe beets? I can't remember, but it was like a layered dish with the pickled fish and vegetables on top. And I enjoyed it. It was definitely very interesting. And like this says, when you eat it all in like one bite, it kind of makes sense. And I don't know how to explain it. And that's how I feel about a good casserole. It looks gross, but goddamn. In Sydney, food writer Jill D dreams of comeback dishes that were brought to life at relative newcomer Ursula's in Paddington. My granny used to do the best flummery ever. It would float off the table, and there it is at Ursula's. What is a flummery? Flummery is an ancient recipe that is featured in Scottish feasts dating right back to the 15th century. What does flummery mean? Flummery means a Scottish dessert, of course, but the dictionary also explains flummery. Flummery means this Scottish dessert, of course, but the dictionary also explains flummery as meaningless or insincere flattery or conventions. It looks good. Okay, as I've already said, this is an old recipe. Nowadays, you'll see recipes for flummery that incorporate jelly and tinned cream. Well, that's not traditional flummery. This flummery dessert takes its starchiness from the soaked oats. Oh, interesting. Its body, if you will, the stuff that holds it together, not the jelly that features in some of the flummery recipes on the internet. A note on the oats. We use Scottish oats. The starch in the oats vary. Okay. Soak the oatmeal in cold water for 48 hours and then strain it, reserving the liquid and discarding the oatmeal itself. It is the oaty flavored water you want for making this dessert. You then mix this with orange juice and sugar. Bring to a boil, stirring for at least 15 minutes until it is very thick. Timings of this depend on the starchiness of the oatmeal. If it doesn't thicken to your liking, add corn flour and a little water to thicken it up. Wow, so it's essentially just a slurry. Remove from heat and allow to cool before stirring in the double cream. Then pour the flummery into 6 little glasses and chill for 30 minutes. Then mix the whiskey with the honey and add a tablespoon to... Ooh. That actually sounds really good. That actually sounds really, really good. Phil Wood, chef owner at Ursula, says it used to be well known, featured in those guides to home cooking for the Australian housewife, like the CWA books, the Golden Waddle Cookery book. But a lot of it has just kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. It's remarkable how quickly things can disappear within a generation. I mean, you even see that like on a week-to-week basis. You see these TikTok food trends pop up, and then they're gone in an instant, replaced by some other, kind of wild food trend. And I think it's happening at such a rapid pace right now. It's kind of insane. While flummery's English cousin is centuries old, the Australian version of flummery was born out of post-war necessity, says Wood. The original recipe combines packet fruit jelly and evaporated milk. The evaporated milk must be made really cold. When you whip it, it whips up like fake cream. The fruit jelly is left in the fridge until almost set. Then you fold those two things together, ending with this flavorful mousse. That is not how the other recipe said. Although I guess, wait, hold on. Okay, so I think I looked at the English or the Scottish version. I can't remember what they said. I already closed the tab. While Wood is known for a flawless technique, his iteration of this dish is easy to make. He uses juiced strawberries for more natural flavoring, but it still contains the all-important evap milk. He uses a little lighter than the traditional flummery, which can be a bit on the spongy side rather than aerated. The dish is currently off the menu, but is due another comeback when light spring fruit is back in season. So I can't wait for the summer berries and stuff to kick in. Melbourne-based chef Victor Leong of Li Ho Fook has also mined nostalgia on occasion. A couple of years ago at Chinese New Year, we cooked from the Australian Woman's Weekly Chinese Cookbook. It was good fun and really well received, he says, but I didn't want to go down that route every day. This is because for those who didn't grow up around that many faces of the Chinese cuisine, we are still in a period of discovery when it comes to Chinese cooking. It hasn't quite got around for people to be like, I really want that nostalgic honey prawn, he says. There are exceptions. Queen Chow in Sydney does a really good job doing that, but Dan Hong is obviously doing it with pretty serious dim sum offering as well. It's highbrow, lowbrow, I guess. I love dim sum. I love me some good dim sum. Let's see. The Australian Woman's Weekly Cookbook experiment had value for Leong because it helped explore stories of the Australian Chinese experience. There's a recipe in that book called, I think, Billy Key's pork ribs. He says the dish was basically a sweet soy pork rib type dish, but it was named after the guy who had a Chinese restaurant and had a really, really interesting life. It's cool to delve into that a little bit more and try and tie that into what it looks like on our menu. That is really fun to kind of see the stories and stuff, and kind of how food came to be. It's always really interesting to me. For Young, who has a popular riff on pie floaters and deviled livers. Are pie floaters? The joy of reviving a retro recipe is subverting expectations. I love the idea of taking things that have fallen out of relevance and seem really bizarre and bunky, that wouldn't seem appetizing at all, and then making them really approachable and really delicious. Oh man, is it on me to revive aspic? All right, we're reviving aspic. That's the universe telling me to do it. And that is the end of the article right there. That's actually, this is a really good point at the bottom where it's like, it kind of goes back to like the bougie casserole. Like, there's just things from my childhood that like I couldn't put on a menu if I used the same recipe, but if I could find a way to kind of like elevate it to restaurant standards and have it be something enjoyable that a guest would like, they could kind of share in that experience, be like, oh, I ate this as a kid too, and kind of bring back those memories. Like, one of my all-time favorite food scenes is from Ratatouille. When that food critic takes a bite of food and has that like flashback to that time with his mom, that is like, that is what I shoot for. Like, that's what I want. I just want to make good food. And it so rarely happens. It, like, I think one of my all-time personal favorite food moments is I made something super, super simple. It was congee. I made congee for a family meal one time. And one of the folks that worked with me kind of came up to me and they were just like, hey, can you make this again? And I was like, yeah, why? Like, this reminds me of just being a kid again, and my mom would make this on like cold rainy days, and that was so touching to like have made that connection for them. And that for me is kind of like what cooking is all about.